Hey, hey, hey! Heads up, bitches. Welcome to another episode of Cut the Shit. I am Christian Tucker, giving you just another idiot's view of the world. I will be ranting and raving about this week's crap that has caught my attention for its stupidity or its uniqueness or its newsworthiness, or at least what I deem newsworthy anyways. As always, don't forget to catch us on the web at www.cuttheshitalready.com. There you will find links to hit to subscribe to our podcast. Also, you'll find a link to Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at PLZCutTheShit, as well as Facebook. You can go to www.facebook.com/cuttheshitalready/. Got something good to say or pass along? Do it at any of these locations. Got some putrid shit to spew my direction? Do it there also, dirtbag. We welcome it all. Okay, so let's get this shit going, shall we? Well, hello, and welcome to episode 15 of Cut the Shit Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about another fun subject, global warming, or whatever you want to call it nowadays. So let's talk about one of the first articles I saw here recently. Dinosaur bones found in the Egyptian desert. Makes you kind of say, oh, that's fucking interesting. So they find a plant-eating dinosaur, what's that, an omnivore, right, in the deserts of Egypt. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Me? Well, what's a herbivore doing in the desert? Of course, it can only be one answer. It didn't used to be a desert. Instead, it was a forest at one time, right? So what happened? Man-made global warming is my guess. See where I'm going with this here? Okay, that's an early heads up, folks, on the direction we're headed. Okay, so how about another example? Texas used to be under the water, you know, like under the ocean. They find sea life fossils all the time, as far as up into Missouri. Hell, maybe even further, for all I know. Why? Well, because, asshats, it used to be covered by the ocean, and now it's not. Again, why? It must be man-made global warming, don't you think? Want another fun factoid? Scientists found evidence of a once lush forest in, wait for it, here it comes, Antarctica. But of course, it's not there now. It's covered with ice and snow. Why? Yep, again, you guessed it. Man-made global warming. Wait a minute. Man-made global warming. There was no industrial complex millions of years ago. There was no overpopulation of the earth millions of years ago. There was no high carbon emissions and diesel chugging trucks and pollution causing steel factories and so forth. So it can't be man-made global warming, right? One of the things I always like to ask is, there was an ice age at one time, right? The entire planet was covered in snow and ice. That's facts. We all know that, right? So what happened to it? I mean, obviously the polar ice caps melted as well as the snow, and we have the planet we have now. But humans couldn't be responsible for that. So what gives? It's called life. It's called nature. It's called the cycle of all things. Once our planet was dry, then it was covered in ice, and now it's dry again, you know, except for the oceans and lakes, I mean. So if the world is changing, and there is some form of climate change, which I'm sure there is, right? History has shown us that. It's true. I'm not arguing that. Then anything that happens now is not man-made. Fine, the earth is getting warmer. We agree. Not human-made. Sorry. What made the earth warm up and in the ice age? I mean, really warm up enough to completely thaw the entire fucking world. Could it be the same thing that's happening now that happened, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago when the polar ice caps melted and so forth? Scientists say we are getting warmer each year, right? And our sea levels are rising each year. The problem is everyone wants to blame it on the humans. But this planet has constantly been under extreme pressure and change since its inception. Why now do we feel responsible? Are we really that so full of ourselves that we think we have the power to control Mother Nature and everything that goes on in the entire planet? Stop it. Just stop it. We don't have that power. We can't slow it down. We didn't even cause it in the fucking first place. How fucking egomaniacal do humans have to be to think we are responsible for the changing climate, right? You want to convince us there is global warming. Wait, global warming, that was the 90s, sorry. Okay, you wanted to convince us there's global cooling. Fuck, wait. That was the 70s, I think, right? So what do we call it now? Oh, yeah. It's called climate change, right? Because all your predictions and models have been wrong going back to the 70s and possibly even further back. Is something happening out there? Yeah, I'm sure there is. But let's get one thing straight. We're not denying the world is going through fucking changes. We are denying it's man-made. It's a secular thing. It's what the world does. Let me say that again. It's what the world does. Just look at the history of our planet and then convince me otherwise. In 1992, 1,700 scientists signed a letter screaming we were ruining the Earth and we would all die if we did not change our ways. In 2017, 16,000 scientists did another letter stating the same thing. Hey, asshat scientists, if the climate is changing and leading to our impending doom, it's Mother Nature's will, and it's going to happen regardless of what we do. If another ice age comes, it's because it was supposed to based on history and cycles. If the entire planet becomes a desert, it's because it was supposed to based on history and cycles, not because of fucking man. Man wasn't around when that fucking first ice age happened, and we sure as hell didn't cause it to fucking go away. So stop fretting and worrying and try to enjoy life on this beautiful planet until this planet decides it's time to wipe the board and start over again. Oh, and guess what? Here's an article dated February 1st, 2018, National Geographic. The headline, Earth's poles will eventually flip. What then? What? That's kind of interesting. Let's get into it just a little bit, shall we? From the article, okay? As little in geologic time, anyway, 780,000 years ago, the poles reversed. It may be about to happen again, some scientists believe, with potentially disastrous results for life on Earth. You fucking think? Really? I don't know much about that shit, but if poles are fucking reversing, some bad shit's about to take place, right? So let me ask you, is that man-made? I don't think so. My point is, and this article helps prove it, the world is constantly changing regardless of man being on it or not. So it's time to stop with all the man-made global warming crap, or climate change as you fucks like to call it. Look, this is a scientist talking about the magnetic pole of Earth eventually flipping, and it has already done so in the past once that we know of, right? So why is it that these same scientists can't have a discussion about how that changes and it's also affecting our environment? Guess what? You better believe they already have had that discussion. But at this point, they're all in on our favorite word of 2017 and into 2018, collusion, right? It's our favorite word. It helps drive the narration and their ideology of man-made global warming or climate control or whatever the fuck they're calling it. They do it because they have to beg for grant money. Sometimes that money comes with a note, stating, here's what I want the published results to look like. It's called a fucking agenda. And money doesn't give to fucking scientists for free, right? There's always something attached to it. Sometimes it's peer pressure. Let's face it, most scientists are left-leaning, right? They're academics and they're elitists, what have you. All their friends are probably pretty much left-leaning too. So if they produce a report that contradicts what their friends feel and their colleagues report, they're going to be ostracized, and it's happened. There have been scientists who have produced reports stating the complete opposite of what everybody else has said, and they get fucking nailed to the wall. Let's not forget all the emails uncovered concerning them cooking the books on climate change and manipulating the data. Do you guys remember this shit? The Guardian, February 1st, 2010. Phil Jones, the beleaguered British climate scientist at the center of the leaked emails controversy, is facing fresh claims that he sought to hide problems in key temperature data on which some of his work was based. Any of that ring a bell to you fucksticks? Or did you just conveniently forget it because it didn't fit your narrative, right? A Guardian investigation of thousands of emails and documents apparently hacked from the University of East Anglia's Climatic Research Unit has found evidence that a series of measurements from Chinese weather stations were seriously flawed. Let me read that to you again. They were seriously flawed, get it? And that documents relating to them could not be produced. So not only were they flawed, but the documents that related to this study, nobody could find them. They were gone, right? Of course, they go on to say that this does not undermine the fact that humans are still causing global man-made warming. Fuck. It's mind-boggling. So guess what? 1 to 1.5 years later, ClimateGate 2.0 happened. And this was November 2011, Forbes.com. A new batch of 5,000 emails among scientists central to the assertion that humans are causing global warming crisis were anonymously released to the public yesterday, igniting a new firestorm of controversy nearly 2 years to the day after similar emails ignited the ClimateGate scandal. 3 themes are emerging from the newly released emails. 1. Prominent scientists central to the global warming debate are taking measures to conceal rather than disseminate underlying data and discussions. Number 2. These scientists view global warming as a political cause rather than a balanced scientific inquiry. And number 3, many of these scientists frankly admit to each other that much of the science is weak and dependent on deliberate manipulations of facts and data. Let's say it again, that much of the science is weak and dependent on deliberate manipulation of facts and data. Let that shit sink in, okay? In the article, they have a few of the emails that they kind of highlighted. Let's read one right now, okay? Observations do not show rising temperatures throughout the tropical troposphere unless you accept one single study and approach and discount a wealth of others. This is just downright dangerous. We need to communicate the uncertainty and be honest. Phil, so this is continuing on the email here. Phil, hopefully we can find time to discuss these further if necessary, writes Peter Thorne of the UK Met Office. I also think the science is being manipulated to put a political spin on it, which for all our sakes might not be too clever in the long run, Thorne adds. Wow. Just that one fucking email has got to tell you fucking everything that you need to know. These are the guys that are doing the fucking study and looking at the fucking results and so forth, right? But Christian, it's now 2018 and scientists still scream at us we are causing man-made global warming and that each year sets new records on rising temperatures. Exactly. It's 2018. Everyone has forgotten about these emails from 2010. So much in the world has transpired since then. That's point number fucking 1, okay? Point number 2, the scientists admit themselves in the emails that they manipulate the data. What, you don't think they're still manipulating the data? You thought they got their hands slapped in 2010 and now they straightened up and flied right? Don't be fucking ridiculous. Don't be naive. Don't be fucking stupid. Another headline from the Telegraph. Climate change. This is the worst scientific scandal of our generation. And they go on and lay out why, with solid reporting, for once from a mainstream newspaper. Now when you Google climate change emails manipulated, you will also find some university or government fact check to try and explain it all away as one or two, grumpy professors or what have you, who were curt or rude in emails and suggest when emails talked about denying this or manipulating that, it was referring to other studies concerning tree rings and other shit, but not climate change. In other words, the institutions that are getting grant money and the government who are sponsoring these things and they're doing the research are saying to the public, listen, Nothing to see here. Move along. Then they ask you to look at their little Men in Black stick and they try to erase your memory on the subject with a bunch of other fucking bullshit. Some more interesting tidbits I found along the way down my rabbit hole. The alarmist assertion number 1. Sea levels are rising. Warmer temperatures are causing glaciers and polar ice sheets to melt, increasing the amount of water in the world's seas and oceans. The facts. The pace of sea level rise remained relatively constant throughout the 20th century, even as global temperatures gradually rose. There has similarly been no increase in the pace of sea level rise in recent decades. Utilizing 20th century technologies, humans effectively adapted to global sea level rise. Also, the alarmist assertion that polar ice sheets are melting is simply false. Although alarmists frequently point to a modest recent shrinkage in the Arctic ice sheet, that decline has been completely offset by ice sheet expansion in the Antarctic. Cumulatively, polar ice sheets have not declined at all since NASA satellites instruments began precisely measuring them 35 years ago. Alarmist assertion number 2. Canada, the new America, lusher vegetation growth typically associated with the United States is now becoming more common in Canada, scientists reported in a 2012 Nature Climate Change study. The facts. Only global warming alarmists would claim that lusher vegetation and more abundant plant life is a bad thing. Playing on a general tendency for people to fear change, EDF and global warming alarmists argue that changes in the biosphere that make it richer, lusher, and more conducive to life are changes to be feared and opposed. Does that make sense, right? No. If barren ecosystems constitute an ideal planet, then the alarmist fears of more plant life makes sense. On the contrary, global warming realists understand a climate more conducive to richer, more abundant plant life is beneficial rather than harmful. Alarmist assertion number 3. Infectious diseases thrive. The World Health Organization reports that outbreaks of new or resurgent diseases are on the rise and in more disparate countries than ever, including tropical illnesses in once cold climates. The facts. Outbreaks of new or resurgent diseases are occurring precisely because governments have caved in to environmental activist groups like EDF and implemented their anti-science agendas. For example, DDT had all but eliminated malaria in the United States and on the global stage during the mid-20th century. However, environmental activists championed false environmental accusations against DDT and dramatically reduced use of this life-saving mosquito killer throughout much of the world. As a result, malaria has re-emerged with a vengeance and millions of people die every year. Alarmist assertion number 4. Shrinking glaciers. In 2013, an iceberg larger than the city of Chicago broke off the Pine Island Glacier, the most important glacier of the West Antarctic ice sheet. And at Montana's Glacier National Park, glaciers have gone from 150 to just 35 over the past century. The facts. Calling attention to anecdotal incidents of icebergs breaking off the Antarctic ice sheet while deliberately ignoring the overall growth of the Antarctic ice sheet is a misleading and a favorite tactic of global warming alarmists. Icebergs break off the Antarctic ice sheet every year, with or without global warming, particularly in the Antarctic summer. However, a particular iceberg, no matter how large, breaking off the Antarctic ice sheet does not necessarily result in shrinking glaciers, as EDF alleges. To the contrary, the Antarctic ice sheet has been growing at a steady and substantial pace ever since NASA satellites first began measuring the Antarctic ice sheet in 1979. Indeed, during the same year that EDF claims an iceberg larger than the city of Chicago broke off, the Antarctic ice sheet repeatedly set new records for its largest extent in recorded history. Those 2013 records were repeatedly broken again in 2014. The Antarctic ice sheet in 2013 and 2014 was more extensive than any time in recorded history, and yet the EDF pushes the lie that the Antarctic ice sheet is shrinking. The EDF's assertion about Glacier National Park is also misleading. Alpine glaciers at Glacier National Park and elsewhere have been receding for over 300 years, since the Earth's temperature bottomed out during the depths of the Little Ice Age. The warming of the past 300 years and the resulting recession of alpine glaciers predated human buildings, coal-fired power plants, and driving SUVs. Moreover, opening up more of the Earth's surface to vegetation and plant and animal life would normally be considered a beneficial change. If global warming alarmists had not so thoroughly politicized the global warming discussion. So there you have it. These are some of the best arguments global warming activists like EDF, which by the way stands for Environmental Defense Fund, can make, along with the objective scientific facts that prove them wrong. No wonder global warming alarmists are so terrified of people having access to both sides of the debate. On a side note, I found an article and I remember hearing about this guy. The head of the EPA, he was arrested and admitted to fraud and was sentenced for 32 years. This guy, he would disappear for months at a time. One time he disappeared for 18 months straight, where he claimed he was working for the CIA in Pakistan. Once he even notified the EPA he was in Pakistan to save his replacement who he had been training and was captured. What? And people at the EPA bought this fucking shit? The guy was really at home, as he later said, exercising and reading books. Again, according to his testimony. Why did he do it? Greed. Pure greed. And that was his answer, too. That's not my speculation. So here we have the head of the EPA lying, cheating, and stealing. Oh yeah, and manipulating facts for pure greed. And you want me to think that silly little scientists out to save the world could not be cut from the same cloth as this man? Get a fucking life. Listen, climate change is big business, okay? Just ask Al Gore. It's big for universities, it's big for professors, it's big for corporations, it's big for the government, especially outside of the USA. Just look at carbon credits, the biggest fraud and flat-out thievery ever perpetrated. What is a carbon credit? A carbon credit is a generic term for any tradable certificate, i.e. paper, or permit representing the right to emit 1 ton of carbon dioxide or the mass of another greenhouse gas with a carbon dioxide equivalent. What? Does that make sense to anybody? That's some made up bullshit just to generate fucking money. So, in other words, you force a company or a country to pay for producing carbon dioxide. And since everyone in every fucking country produces it, the money exchanged or forcibly try to make people exchange is astronomical. It's like someone sat around and said, what can we charge or tax people for? I mean, it has to be something everyone does, and they can't deny that they do it. And boom, carbon credit or tax was created. By who? By investment bankers. As far as anybody can tell, it was investment bankers who started this shit. Who knows for sure, though? Ask Al Gore. I bet he has his paws in that shit somewhere. I know he has his paws in that shit. So, that's why people scream about this Paris Climate Change Accord and any other climate change accord that is presented. They want to charge the USA for using so much carbon dioxide. Or I should say, creating so much carbon dioxide. I mean, wait, don't plants need carbon dioxide like we need oxygen? Why, yes, they do. They take, when I say they, plants take carbon dioxide and water, and with the help from the sun, and they create oxygen, which is what we breathe. These plants also, they create carbohydrates when they do this process. I don't know where the carbs go. I guess to my ass, right? So now I realize we are being charged for creating something that's beneficial and a must have for plants and trees to survive and grow and flourish, which in turn makes us grow and flourish. Okay, that's probably oversimplifying it a bit, but not by a big stretch, okay? By the way, the Paris climate change deal was going to have us, the USA, paying billions of dollars per year, which, by the way, would be passed down to the consumer. Don't for a second think otherwise, all right? While China and other countries didn't have to pay a thing for up to 25 years. I'm not making this shit up, guys, okay? Talk about raping the American citizens. And by the way, this was going to be Obama's big legacy, him signing this deal. This was going to be his legacy. And thank God we pulled out of it. If Hillary Clinton had been elected, we would have stayed in that Paris Accord agreement and been paying billions of dollars. And in case you didn't know it, countries like China and India, they're the world's worst polluters, bar none. I'm going to flash a couple pictures up on the screen just for you to see the pollution that takes place just in those two countries who weren't going to have to pay any carbon credit taxes for fucking 25 years. So you see, these pics are far worse than anything the USA is doing, and they wouldn't have to pay a carbon credit for 25 years. Does this make fucking sense to anybody? Listen, it's all about money and power, and do not for 1 second think it is anything else. This climate change shit is worse than a Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme on fucking steroids. So all you man-made climate change people, shut your traps and cut the shit. You want to squawk? Go scream at China and India, but leave us the fuck alone. All right. Feeling much better. Hopefully you'll take some of the pictures and some of the links that I'll be posting and follow them and do some of your own research on this. So once again, guys, I want to thank you for joining Cut the Shit podcast. This was episode 15. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something. At very least, there's something to chew about and talk to your friends over a nice pint of beer and a cigar or something. Listen, join us next week. Do me a favor, check out www.cuttheshitalready.com. Stay classy, and until next time, guys.